Hello. Hello, welcome. Hey, Crispy, how are you doing today? Oh, I have a message. I will read that later. Okay, Wednesday. Well, it's been a little over a week since last time. Good to catch you. Good to see you. Um, Today, I think I'm going to do a quick sketch. This is also testing a new time, kind of around 11 noonish, lunchtime-ish. Do a quick drawing today in a sketchbook. Grab lunch and then get back to work on some other stuff. But thank you, welcome. I am Bernard Chang, artist designer. I am going to draw for you today. So, Crispy, how have you been? This is Cabin Fever edition. I have a couple different names for streaming shows, but this year's shows are called Cabin Fever because obviously we're all locked in. I'm based in LA, so we are now experiencing a second lockdown. Um, Hopefully, this second lockdown, I'll be able to get back in shape, get rid of my dad bod, even though I'm not a dad. Well, you can hear in the background maybe there are two birds. Those are my kids, I guess you could say that. So let's see here. Today, I guess I'm going to be drawing Shazam. Thank you, Crispy. Yes. Crispy is alluding to, you can see on the banner down below, right here, there's a little HBO Max logo. That is, we have just, Eddie Huang, good friend of mine, we sold an animated show to HBO Max, so called Chinos. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you can go on there and check out some of the artwork. Crispy, what? Remind me again what part of this planet you're based in? Was it Southern California? Or no? Also, I'm trying out this new schedule. Hey, Yoji, how you doing? Trying out this new schedule too because this during the day, man, it's been hot the last few days. So, want to see how unbearable it is during the day, with and without the air conditioning. The air conditioning, I think, is kind of loud and creates like this hum in the background. Hello, Tengu Bruxo. If you guys, if my audio tends to be trailing, please post a little note. Tell me to start talking louder. I am still working, trying to perfect my setup. I have a mic that's right here. You can't see it because it's covered with a green knit hat. The magic of green screen, you can kind of see I'm unveiling it. There it is. That's the mic. I'm also I kind of like this floating head motif. I think I'm going to stick with it, especially considering the name of this season's show being Cabin Fever, like a floating head. If I can do a spiral behind me, that'd be awesome, but then that might be too much. So, James Koo Draws, welcome to the stream. Thank you for the compliment. James is referring to, yes, last week we had I had submitted a piece to Jim Lee's Bink Foundation charity fundraising drive to help support your local comic book store. And I had done a Harley Quinn versus Punchline piece. Again, that is available on my Instagram page, thebernardchang.com. You can see the right here. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's right. thebernardchang.com. I don't want this to get into like a plugging of my social media. But until I get big enough streaming and have a moderator, I'm going to have to keep reminding people. Hello, Kirihiko. How are you doing? Good to see you today. Welcome. I've been meaning to stream the last couple days. I set up the overlays and just been caught up with other work. I do want to let you guys know I recently won the Super Bowl with my 2024 Miami Dolphins. So that is an accomplishment during this quarantine lockdown. You are watching a Super Bowl winner. Thank you. I drafted the QB, third year, and also the running back is 2 years. So did so with a completely new squad. So back to the charity piece. Yeah, the charity Punchline Harley Quinn piece ended up at $2,923. So I was really surprised, very grateful that it was able to raise that much money. Although altogether, I think Jim Lee's efforts, including with other artists like Walter Simonson, David Cho had a piece that was $38,000, which I thought was like even, probably could have gone, probably worth more, a lot more than that. Altogether, I think he's raised $750,000, so $700 some $1,000 total. There's still maybe a week or so left in the charity. I think Jim still has maybe 8 pieces left. 7 or 8 pieces left, and including there might be a couple other guest artists. So I was just honored to have him say, okay, I could submit a piece. As some of you might know, Jim is, I'm like a big fanboy when it comes to Jim Lee. Yeah, Walter Simonson. I think Walter had like a couple. He had the Thor one with all the Thors. That was amazing. And some of the pieces that Jim's been doing, I've been like, wow, these are very unique style, very different than what some people might be used to seeing Jim Lee. But I think have been coming out amazing. And do you guys have any favorite pieces from that charity drive so far? I think Jim Chung did a Spider-Man early on. That was a really nice piece. He even put the logo on there. Philip Tan had a couple pieces. Today I'm drawing Shazam. I mean, I guess you can kind of tell with the thunderbolt on his chest. So today's stream is going to be another test. Again, well, all of these streams I keep saying are tests, but uh, when I started streaming a year or so ago, I had these grand notions of turning this into like a show or something. Um, it's just so much prep work. So today, yeah, it's during the day, so it's gonna get kind of hot. I kind of want to maybe stick to like an hour, hour and a half at the most. It's 11:30 right now in LA, so the sun should be right above me right now, baking. I'm on the top floor of my building, so and also during the day, there's a couple new buildings being erected right around me. So hopefully today there won't be too much distractions from construction noise. Um, I'm hoping the only distractions you hear are my two birds who are flying out and about right now, although they just ate lunch, so they should be taking an afternoon nap. I don't really draw a lot of Shazams. This is probably one of the only Shazams. I have the reference here on the screen. If you haven't seen this stream yet, my studio setup, this is my drawing table. I think on my regular channel page there's a picture of my messy studio. On the right hand side I have actually three monitors, iMac Cinemax screen, and then over here to my left, television. Although the television is off right now, usually it's sports or news. How does Shazam's cape work? I know it's like just a half cape. I think I might ink this piece too, since this is going to be on the inside cover of a sketchbook. Which I'm assuming will be used a lot, so inking it will help solidify it. Tango Bruxo, thank you so much for the compliment. The week before, and gosh, really honestly, I am really suffering from a little cabin fever, because I think I did those like 2 weeks ago, but it feels like, on one hand, it feels like yesterday, and on another, it feels like I drew those more than 2 weeks, maybe like a couple months ago. Time is not absolute. Cabin fever has really diminished my brain capacity, so recognizing time, space, continuum has been somewhat difficult. I think Captain America, Captain Marvel here. I thought today vary it up. Usually I've been drawing on 9 by 12 Bristol pads. Today, this is actually going to be a gift. So I would recommend, if you're a young artist out there, to get a sketchbook. Bring that sketchbook everywhere you go so you can draw. This is a brand new Canson sketchbook. They are not a sponsor of this stream, but these are the sketchbooks that I use. Either this or sometimes, like Dick Blick has their own. I do have a sponsor for art supplies called Janoff's. If you guys are in the New York City area, make sure you check out Janoff's Stationery on the Upper West Side. I believe 111th. They're on Broadway between 111th and 112th. It is a mom and pop shop. They have all the art supplies you would ever need. They have supplied me with pens, erasers, watercolors. I do need a sneaker supplier if someone works at Nike or something. That would be awesome. Actually, well, no, I have a guy hooking me up with some Nikes too, but yeah. Oh, you guys can hear the birds, yeah. Out of randomly, they're just going to start arguing with each other. Now, last year when I was streaming, if they flew onto my shoulders during the stream, and you'll see them because they're blue, so they'll stand out from the green screen. Everyone that is online during that time, I'll make sure to get a prize, send them a prize. So if the birds come and land on my shoulders, both of them have to land on my shoulders at the same time. Well, if one lands first and then the other lands, as long as both are on my shoulders or one shoulder, then everybody that's on stream will get a print. So there should be a nice little contest, if you can call it a contest. Does Shazam have like a gesture that he does? He just says Shazam, right? You see arms on his hips. I think next time I want to finish out I did a Panthro sketch. After the Panthro sketch, I want to do maybe I'll finish out the Thundercats. There was a theme going on where I'm drawing characters from my youth. I was a latchkey kid growing up. I don't know if they have latchkey kids anymore. I'm assuming they still do. Where I was raised by a single mom. So after school, let myself in the house and watch as many cartoons as I can before my mom came back for dinner. So Dire Raven 2018. Good to see you. How you doing? All right. Your favorite character is Shazam. Can you tell me a little bit about Shazam? That way, as I'm sketching, I can maybe incorporate some of that knowledge into the pose, although I think I am pretty much done with the pose right now. Let me reply to this text really quick. Can I call you back in about 30 to 45 minutes? Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. I think this arm can be probably a little bit bigger. Billy Batson, yes. He has a collar. How high does the collar go up on his mini cape? James Kudrows asks, what are the books from my past that I enjoy or most proud of? Well, usually I would like to say whatever current book I'm drawing, that's the one that I'm putting the most amount of effort in. Don't ever really want to rely on past laurels. So, Teen Titans, and every book too is a little different. I've drawn Wonder Woman, Superman, Supergirl, Demon Knights. Demon Knights was a lot of fun. It was a team book, but it was a lot of fun. Green Lantern Corps. Green Lantern Corps was very challenging because you got like how many thousands of Green Lanterns are there, and the writer insisted on including thousands every issue. And then Nightwing. I think I'm missing something. Nightwing, and then with DC, Teen Titans, and then most recently with Marvel, X-Men, Children of the Atom. So I think right now I'm just going to, here's a wrist. And this afternoon stream too, usually sometimes I watch during the day a couple other guys that stream, but they don't usually come on until early, mid-afternoon. So I think his Shazam thing doesn't go that low. I think Shazam was always a kind of a comedic superhero book, right? So Teen Titans, actually, and with each book also, you have different challenges, different writers. I've been very fortunate to have worked with some of the best writers in the business. Every writer has a particular different style as well. So a lot of that is adjustments. Batman Beyond. Yeah, so after Green Lantern Corps was Batman Beyond. How could I forget Batman Beyond? That was with Dan Jurgens, one of the legendary comic book creators, writer / artist. And that was 2.5 years. Dan and I worked along with Marcello Maiolo. I was going to bring Marcello's name up. So not only have I had the opportunity to work with some of the best writers, I've also worked with one of the best colorists in the business, Marcello. He is like a brother of mine. We've been working together since Demon Knights. I think Shazam needs like a big neck, right? Although this neck needs to be, because he's twisting. Who is Black Adam his arch nemesis? What if I drew Black Adam on the other side of the sketchbook? That would be kind of cool, but that's a lot of work. This thing doesn't fold down, does it? Nope. I think his shoulder is going to be here. Alright, what do you guys think so far? Batman Beyond was actually a lot of fun. Working with Dan, again, going back to different writers, different styles. Dan is also an artist. So his scripts were very open. We actually worked in a plot format for a good portion of the series. That allowed me a lot of storytelling freedoms. Sometimes writers might write too much, and I might want to allocate more space in particular pages as opposed to whatever they might have written in their script. So I started drawing comics professionally back in a long time ago, probably more before some of you guys were born, early 90s. 92 was my first year as a professional while I was attending art school. Well, I was going to Pratt Institute in New York City, but I was an architecture major. And back then, comics were written in a plot format. So you'd have basically a paragraph or so a page, minimal to no dialogue written, and the penciler / artist would be responsible for storytelling. After I finished the pencils, a copy of that would go to the writer, who would then write the dialogue. So it was a very collaborative effort, while the originals would go to the inker, who would then ink over the originals. Nowadays, a lot of comics are full script, so the dialogue comes already written inside the story, inside the script. And again, depending on the writer that you're working with, Dan was very open to having changes or rewriting some of the dialogue after he saw, the pages coming in, and he's working on plot. But even when we were initially doing everything in script, but to give you an example, when I was on Teen Titans with Adam Glass, Adam is a showrunner, TV showrunner. He has a lot of other projects, so his time in terms of revisions is very limited. So I would have to stick exactly with the script, but I would showcase maybe moving some panels around, some pacing a little bit differently, but all the dialogue would remain the same. Originally, back in the old days, the dialogue was written last because sometimes if you if the artist was able to draw stuff in the storytelling, hence storytelling, then the writer wouldn't have to write that. Shazam wouldn't have to say, I'm raising my fist. He could actually expand upon other things. This is green tea. So it's kind of translucent. Yeah, interesting. I also have green sunglasses that I bought. But that's more for like Zoom calls, so I can disappear. Alright, I think I'm pretty comfortable with this setup here. There's a kind of a high waistband. You guys can hear the birds. They're waking up from their afternoon or noontime slumber. They might be coming up soon. That would be very exciting. I've never given away a prize like that before. I mean, I guess I can do that right now. There's not that many people watching. Do I prefer drawing a team book or a solo book? The team book is definitely a lot more work. A lot of times you have to fit more characters in the panels, so that affects layouts, storytelling. Also, each character has their own mannerisms, so you need to be able to showcase a lot of that. Whereas if it's a solo book, the main emphasis would be that main character, and then whichever other heroes or villains that they're interacting with, in particular in that scene. But yeah, having a team book is, you got to draw all these characters in there. What I do like about Shazam is he has kind of cartoonish eyes. Here's a word to the wise. Sometimes the angle that you're sitting at can also distort the drawing. So you want to make sure, while it looks good for the camera, for myself as the artist, from my perspective, and then ultimately with how this is going to actually look in person, it can be somewhat like, ugh, what was I thinking? I guess if you're drawing digital, it's how you sit to the computer screen. I've noticed at times I'd be doing a sketch at a show or convention. Tables and chairs are all at different heights. Even sitting when I'm traveling at a hotel room, all the furniture is different than what you're used to at home. So there's a level of adjustment needed. And sometimes you might be almost completely done and then realize that, ooh, this whole piece is skewed. Now on the computer, once you scan it in, once you finish it, you can scan it in and then adjust it in Photoshop. But when it's a traditional piece It's much more difficult. Got to make sure you get it right. Then after this, I kind of want to eat lunch. Don't want to eat too much. And then get back to work on other projects. Hello, Sean Chen. Sean Chen Art. Welcome to the stream, Sean Chen, ladies and gentlemen. You guys should give Sean a follow. Check out Instagram, Sean Chen Art. Is that your handle, Sean? Sean is the current artist on Batman Beyond. He is. He also has a series out on heavy metal. Well, what's Carl's company? Right. Sean and I go way back. We broke into this industry the same summer. Sean got a head start, a couple months head start on me. Always been envious of Sean because his head start meant that he got to work with Barry Windsor Smith. Although I got to work with Bob Layden, which is great storytelling. But Barry is also an immense artist as well. So Sean got to work with both Bob and Barry. By the time I got to Valiant, I only met Barry once. My very first day at Valiant. This was a great story. I tell this story quite often. Next Chapter Post. At Next Chapter Post on Instagram. Make sure you give Sean a follow. Again, one of these days when I develop enough viewers, I'll have a moderator who will type all this stuff out. But for now, you'll just have to listen to my voice and hopefully give him a follow. So anyways, my first day at Valiant was in New York City. I was 20 years old. Bob Layden, I called Bob up. I met Bob at San Diego Comic-Con that summer. Back then, San Diego Comic-Con was in August. It was later in the year. Nowadays, it's in July. When I got back to school in New York in the fall at Pratt, I gave Bob a call. He was like, come on in, I got a gig for you. Got some work for you. There's more to the story, but I'll just tell you the version about Barry. So I show up. I'm wearing a tie. I think the first year or two, every time I went into the office, I would wear a tie. Yeah, Sean was able to buy a lot of really nice stuff with his royalties from Ryan the Future Force, which sold like 1 million copies. Right place, right time. So Bob gave me, my first assignment was Archer and Armstrong. Archer and Armstrong was a book that Barry Windsor Smith had drawn. Was his book, kind of his baby. And he was like, I'm going to be doing the first fill-in issue. Issue 9, I believe. So go into Barry's office over there. Barry had an office in the window office at Valiant at the Valiant offices. Is Barry, show Bernard how to draw Archer and Armstrong. It's like, wow. I really didn't know what to expect that first day when I went into the Valiant offices, because prior to the Monday right before that, I think it might have been a Wednesday, I went into the Valiant offices. Somebody can check the calendar. September, because Bob's birthday was on 19th, right? September 19th, Sean. And I remember they had like some flyers about his birthday party being that week, and so I might have gone in on a Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. Monday had gone into Milestone. Uh, Originally, I was in the running to be the artist on Static, but as fate would have it, they gave Static to another one of my best buddies, John Paul Leon. And originally, Dwayne had said, "Oh, when I come back to school in the fall." John Paul and I had gone to high school together. When I come back to school in the fall in New York, stop by the offices, and he would have maybe a tryout, a fill-in issue for me to draw on one of their books. Milestone was launching with 4 titles, I believe. Static, Shadow Cabinet, no. Static, Blood Syndicate, Icon, and that's 3, right? See, my brain is like really slowed down. Icon, Blood Syndicate, Static, and something. Fill in the blank. But when I met up with Dwayne, he said, "Well, I don't have any work for you. We're too busy with the launch, so we don't even have any inventory stories ready to go." And so probably check back with him in November at the earliest. So when I left the Milestone offices, I was a little pissed because they kept promising me work, and ultimately not delivering. And I didn't want to wait until November, because if I waited till November, my thinking was that by the time November came around, he could be saying, "Oh, we're too busy right now. Come back in February or March," right? So even though Michael Davis, who's one of the founding members and co-creator of Static, had been a big mentor of mine, I remember he had actually taken John Paul and me around that San Diego Comic-Con, introduced me to all of his contacts. On the very last day, the very last hour, I lined up to show my portfolio to Bob. And so when I left the Milestone offices that day, walked into, I remember distinctly being pissed, and then just upset, disappointed. And then there'd be a payphone right on the sidewalk, right outside their office, maybe a couple feet to the right. And I was like, "Fuck this! Excuse me. Screw this! I'm going to call Bob Layden from Valiant, a very loyal person. Michael Davis had, been my mentor, and really provided me a lot of guidance. But I didn't want to wait, and so put in my 25 cents. You guys know what payphones are, right? Payphones are phones that are, you can put in a quarter and dial someone. This look kind of cheesy. He's got his hand up. And I called up Bob. I said, "Bob, this is Bernard. We met in San Diego." He's like, "Yeah, sure, I remember you. When can you come in?" I said, "Well, it's Monday. I could probably come in on Wednesday." So I was going to school at the time. So at Pratt. So I come in Wednesday. Um, so sure, come on in. And I got some work for you. But I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that's what, you know, that's what everybody says. I got work for you, but then I go in and there's no work. But sure enough, that day I went in. The next day, Wednesday, a couple days later, I went into Valiant. So I sat down. Showed Bob. I had redone half of my portfolio that I showed him just a month earlier in San Diego, based off of comments and notes that I got from various editors and artists. And and he's like, "Oh, that's great. Okay, here's your first script, first plot. Here's your first story. You're gonna draw Archer and Armstrong. Fill-in issue. You're gonna have a couple months to draw it. Um, basically, report back to him every time I have some layouts. He'll go over it with me, and then we'll go from there." So, and he was like, Barry was in the office. Like, Barry, take Bernard into your office and show him how to draw Archer and Armstrong. So, yeah, again, I showed up. I had, oh, you know, like a white shirt, a tie. I don't think I had a blazer or jacket on. Just a tie, dress shirt, dress pants, dress shoes. Carried a portfolio, 20 years old, as if I'm, going to work. And Barry sits me down in his office. Barry used to draw on rolls of tracing paper. And portfolio was, back then they would recommend minimum 8 pages. I had about 16. 16 is a little overdue, too much, too, also. You really just need 8 of a continuous story from, doesn't even have to finish. It's just 8 consecutive pages featuring the same characters or the universe, so that editors can kind of gauge. You need talking scenes, action scenes, and 8 should be good. Nowadays they say 4 to 6. You should be able to tell, and you can kind of tell within 4 to 6 if the artist has the chops. The rest of it is deadline, timing, how long it takes for them to do a page. Let's see how we're doing on this. His head's a little big. So Barry pulls out his trace, and Barry drew on tracing paper with blue pencil. And so he starts sketching out the characters. Oh, this is Armstrong. He's a big, burly, heavy-set, husky guy. This is Archer. He's very wiry, thin, so their silhouettes should immediately reflect the difference in their body types. Archer is very agile, nimble, whereas Armstrong was just kind of a bull in a china shop. Always drunk or high. So his actions should be not very fluid, almost stumbling into things. He's an immortal. So he can drink as much as he wants, it won't affect him. Blah, blah, blah. Actually, Archer also has this big jawline. So I'm drawing Shazam's jaw. And kind of ironic, huh? And then when he's done, he rips it out, hands it to me, and says, "Here, kid, go practice." And I'm holding an original Barry Windsor Smith artwork in my hands, so I was like, whoa. I was holding it, I was like, excuse me, Mr. I was trying to figure, should I say Mr. Windsor Smith or Mr. Smith or Barry? But I wouldn't call him Barry, because I'm 20. He's like a legend. So I said, excuse me, would you mind signing this for me? And, he kind of like sat there for a brief moment, paused, and he was like, all right, well, look, this is the last time because you're a pro now. So it's the last time I'm going to sign something for you. Meaning, like, stop being such a little fanboy. You're a pro now. Act like it. Act like you've been here before. So that's my Barry Windsor Smith story. But when you're 20, hey man, first gig, first day, and then after that they gave me a huge stack of like Valiant comics to read. Went back to my dorm. The rest of the night started reading the books. I was like, wow man, universe is very, very rich. I don't remember if I saw Sean that day. But subsequently I would come in maybe once a week over the next couple months. I started slowly drawing that first issue. We had time because it was a fill-in. I think he was on issue 6 at the time, 5 or 6. And 8 was a double size issue where they introduced, I think, Ivar the Time Traveler. So I have a signed Barry Windsor Smith sketch of Archer and Armstrong somewhere in my portfolio. Somewhere. I gotta dig it up. It'd be great if I could find it and then take a picture and post it on Instagram. So make sure you give me a follow. That way you can see the drawing when I do find it and post it. Shameless plug. And then shortly after that, I think Barry had a falling out. And he rarely went into the offices. I don't know, Sean, you want to add to that? I think shortly after that, that later that fall, Jim Shooter had already left the company that summer. And then, so I never got to work with Jim, and I got maybe 1 or 2 meetings with Barry. The rest of the time was all Bob. Bob trained me in storytelling, in drawing. He was kind of like a second father to me while I was at Valiant. And I owe a lot of my successes in this industry to him. Alright, I think I'm kind of okay with this. The arm looks a little weird. The birds are not approving, but they're like, come on. Gotta keep moving. Keep this moving. And my stomach is beginning to growl. So, gotta keep to a schedule here. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of great guys at Valiant too at the time. Mark Moretti, he was another guy that I really connected with. Mark was he was an editor, but he was also a writer artist at Valiant. He was, I believe, writing and drawing Eternal Warrior. And Mark was also, before starting at Valiant, he was a basketball coach. He was the assistant women's assistant basketball coach of the women's team at Virginia University, D1, I believe. So he and I kind of connected on that level. When I was at Pratt, I was also on the basketball team. That was my third year. I don't think I was captain that year, but I was getting some. My third year was my most memorable year. I was really enjoying architecture school. My first year and second year was like, yeah. And I only really stayed at Pratt because of the basketball team, because I had made the basketball team. Otherwise, I would have probably transferred out of Pratt and gone to maybe RISD. RISD had been my first choice. But because I made the basketball team at Pratt, I was like, I really enjoy playing college basketball. So, all right, let's go to inks. Wow, it's going to be kind of daunting. What position did I play in basketball? I played point guard. Well, shooting guard, point guard. We had a couple guys on the team that were legends. One guy, Robert Fuller, he would go on and break the school scoring record. And then the other guy is Anthony Hayward, a.k.a. Half Man, Half Amazing, from the N1 streetball team. So those two guys were the bread and butter of our team, along with all the other members of the squad. So sometimes I would rotate between shooting guard and point guard. Sometimes I would be point guard. Most of my duties were to facilitate and move the ball around to the other three players that were on the court at the same time, and occasionally shoot a pull-up three. Because Bobby and Biz would be, they would also bring the ball up themselves if they wanted to. So, I would just kind of do all the dirty work. And I did not mind it. There's a role for everyone on the team, and that was my role. What do you think, Sean? This is... And actually, by the time I graduated, my senior year, I think my senior year I averaged about 5 points a game, 4 and change. So overall, career-wise, I might average like 3 points. But that year, I won co-MVP, along with Bobby Fuller, who broke the school scoring record. So go figure. Yeah, but that third year, I mean, that fall, I was doing really well in school, grade-wise. I had really beginning to enjoy architecture. I had a really good teacher, DeSantos, I think, if I remember correctly. I was playing basketball, college basketball, and I was working professionally as a comic book artist. So all gears, everything was hitting on all 4 cylinders. Inking is a little bit more daunting for me because I'm not that comfortable, confident inking. And I've been doing a lot of work digitally, which affords me a Command Z, an undo tool, which traditional inks you don't have. Right? I mean, I could go back in there with some whiteout or pro white, but then that would make the paper all like warped. How is his hair? He's kind of got this clean cut hairstyle. '90s were pretty good, man. '90s comics. That first year, working at Valiant, because school, I had a full scholarship at Pratt. So by, I want to say, and that year too, basketball wise, we had our best record up until this past year at Pratt. We were 12 and 13. Technically, we were actually 13 and 12, and we should have made the ECAC, which is East Coast Athletic Conference, postseason tournament. That was the best season Pratt had had in a very long time. The only reason we were 12 and 13 instead of 13 and 12 was we had a home game, mind you, a home game against Uppsala College. I think they were in Jersey. Not Jersey, then they were from upstate New York. They were actually a pretty good team at the time. I believe their program has since been disbanded because of violations, NCAA. And we had actually, in the scorebook, by the time the clock had ran out, we were actually up by 1. But on the scoreboard in the stadium, in the gym, it read that we were tied. So scorebook-wise, we had actually won. Scoreboard-wise, we were tied. And we had a player that got fouled with no time left. So he had 2 free throws, 2 chances to put us over, even though the scorekeepers messed up the score. And he missed both free throws. And we went into overtime and lost by, I think, a bucket. And it was only until after the game that we discovered that our own scorekeeper effed up. And when the game should have never gone into overtime. So how disheartening is that? I mean, it's one thing if you're on the road in some other school and they're trying to cheat or, put as much advantage, give their team as much advantage. But we're at home and our own scorekeepers effed up. So and in that season, 13 losses or 12 losses out of 12 losses. Most of them were all by single digits. So we were playing schools, Division III, New York City area schools. There were legit programs. CCNY, Mount St. Vincent, Baruch, Old Westbury. What else? Medgar Evers. Yeah, we beat up Medgar Evers that year too. That was like a payback. Our freshman year, they had beaten us pretty badly. I don't know, Yoji. I mean, I have to Google search that, but I recall reading a while ago that Uppsala's program had been shut down. Division III is tough. Division III, you're not supposed to offer scholarships. Whereas like Division I, Division I is the bigger schools, NCAA. You get size of your school also allows you to have more athletic teams. So I believe the qualifications between Division I, Division II are also based on how many athletic teams you have, men and women's teams, and then allocation of scholarships per sport. So Division II, you have X amount of scholarships, and then Division I, you have the most. I think that year too, we might have 91, 2 or 3. That year we also played Columbia. Got blown out by Columbia though. So I think that team, Columbia is Division I. Yeah. Because I remember my freshman year when we played Medgar Evers, they had guys pulling up threes at half court. I mean, they dribble past half court and they start shooting and making them. And we're like, these guys are Division III. And sure enough, they had a whole bunch of Division I players on the roster. That year, Medgar Evers went into the NCAA postseason, I think, or at least the ECAC, East Coast Athletic Conference. I don't know if the ECAC is still around. They have all these college athletic conferences, or something just happened. Was that a follow? Thank you for the follow, whoever followed. Much appreciated. Much obliged. Yeah, so that year was great. And, also at Pratt, the winter was great too, because the winter, there was no school for the month of January, but we would have basketball games. So I would be drawing comics. I'd wake up. It was like the NBA lifestyle. Wake up. We'd have practice in the morning, maybe like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Then if we didn't have a game in the afternoon, we'd have practice, or game in the early evening, we'd have practice. So then we have the whole day off. So that year, we'd go watch movies, hang out, play video games, or I'd draw comics. Sean was already out of school, though. Sean went to Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon is also Division III. They have a pretty decent sports program. We never got to play Carnegie Mellon. We did play like NYU a couple times. The following year, 93, 94, we played NYU. That was one of the most memorable games, aside from the one that we lost at home due to the scoreboard, due to our scorekeepers. That following year, NYU was ranked number 1 in the nation in Division III. Number 1 in the nation. We played them in the very last game of the regular season. I believe they scheduled us because they felt like it would be a nice little tune-up and a rest to end their season. Usually a lot of schools, bigger schools, would schedule us early in the season, thinking that, well, it's going to be a cakewalk. We'll get some playing time for our bench guys. Our starters will play, half a game, and then we'll get everybody on the bench some playing time just to get them experience. But the NYU game came at the end of the year, very last home game of the season for NYU. Ranked number 1, about to go into the NCAA postseason. And I just like playing at NYU. They had a band. They had 2 sets of cheerleaders. Basically like dancers and cheerleaders. And they had like a pretty good following. Alumni and local area people. So their games were packed. The arena, the gym that they had, Cole Center, was packed. I mean, it's as close to the college basketball experience as you're going to get, right? I mean, even when we played Columbia, they're Division I. And NYU had a mascot too. So we went in there. They thought they were going to have a little cakewalk over us. We had 8 guys due to injuries or grades. We had 8 guys to finish the season on the roster. They had a 7-foot center. And our tallest guy was 6'3", maybe. And at some point, I think we were down by 2 at half. We actually ended up going up by 2 early in the second half. And we eventually lost the game. We had 4 guys foul out with, I want to say, like 4 minutes left in the game. Leaving us with 4 players on the court, 4 against 5, for like 4 minutes. So we ended up losing. But it was a valiant effort. They definitely, their fans thought they were going to get highlight reel film for their players. And we put up a hell of a fight. James Kudraw asks, did architecture help with my comics skills? Yes. Architecture is a design sensibility. It's a way of looking at things. Most people, when they find out that I was majoring in architecture, I actually ended up getting my degree, my bachelor's in architecture. Think that, oh, maybe I have really good backgrounds, architecture, buildings. But architecture itself is design and sensibility. So when you look at a comic book page, there's panels. And what are architecture? Architecture is rooms, spaces. So if you apply it in that sense, right? How you organize space, how you organize volume, where the experience is when you walk into a particular area. What do you want that person to feel when they're in that space? That's comics. What do you want the reader to feel when they look at that particular image? When you choose the particular camera angle, it's a down shot, up shot. Those are all storytelling. Storytelling choices that the designer makes. So James, I'm assuming you're an artist. It says James Kudraws. I'll look up your profile later after this, when I'm done. What kind of stuff do you draw? Comics, I'm assuming, or just in general? When I'm drawing comics, like, this is just sketching, right? This is not really, it's a comic book character, but is it really comics? It's a comic book, maybe a style of artwork that you would see in a comic book, but it's not really comics is storytelling. Using sequential illustration, using single images to tell the story. So this, what I'm doing right here, is more of a, it's just a drawing. It's a technical application of skill. Storytelling, comic book, story panels. That's really comics. So a lot of stuff you see on Instagram or people post on stuff, online, it's not really comics. It's comic book style drawings. But I would say comics is really when you are telling stories with images, still images. This is my favorite part of the pen, by the way. The nib is extremely thin and scratchy, unpredictable. But also, it's like a very thin or limited use at this point. Very unpredictable because I won't know how much longer I'll have to work with this particular pen. It's almost, you can hear the metal grinding against the paper, right? Along with the nib. So it's scratching up the paper at the same time, which is, that's not great because messing with the surface of the paper, but it gives it a particular feel, like a rough feel that I like. That is true. I mean, covers are one thing, right? Again, you guys got to understand that we're in a business of telling stories. Covers, they look nice. And I do covers as well. Sean does covers as well. But just because you can draw a nice face, a nice body, doesn't mean you can tell a good story. And that's what I hope people watching this stream or other streams in general, if you want to get into comics, to appreciate the craft, the form, the craft of storytelling. It's not just drawing pretty pictures. An analogy that I would use often is there's a difference between a model and an actor. There's a difference between a model and an actor. So there are physically attractive models. There also are physically attractive actors. But not every good-looking model can be a good actor, right? And what is the actor doing? The actor is telling a story. So, on one hand, I do feel, yes, drawing is very important, being able to draw well, because you have to convey images. Whatever you're drawing is like grammar. It's like language. So there is a skill set involved in that. But the other aspect of comics is storytelling. Whether it's exciting to look at, whether you understand, comprehend the story, if you're getting emotional contexts with it. I think what would be another good analogy? Like you look at the music industry, there's people that write songs and there's people that perform those songs. Nowadays, you're seeing, in the past, it would be that, no, maybe I got to think this out. Maybe that's not a good analogy. I think I like my acting analogy better. You can kind of see this pen is beginning to dry up a little bit. I'm running out of the nib. It's almost disappeared. Another favorite artist of mine is Sergio Topi. I love his pen work, line work. Sean, you working on Batman Beyond stuff today? Well, Yoji, I wouldn't say that. That's why I think I stopped before I went further on the analogy, because I don't think it's a good analogy. What I was trying to equate was the drawing aspect versus storytelling. And then I quickly realized as I was starting to talk that it could be misconstrued in particular ways. So the acting thing is definitely, because you look at a drawing and it looks pretty, it looks nice, it looks pleasing. And you can tell stories with single images. It is possible to tell stories, photography, you can tell stories with single images. But comics at its core is sequential storytelling. How you composite the images together. That craft, that form of art should not be confused with just drawing well. I think you need both. But just because you have one doesn't necessarily guarantee that you have the other. And even drawing-wise, too. There are times where I look at my drawing, I'm sure I will look back at this drawing later on and pick out parts of it that I'm not happy with. I mean, I think I'm rendering Shazam's body a lot, but in a lot of the references I look at, other artists have tended to not render his body, torso as much. Maybe because of the fabric or the whatever textures they're trying to evoke. In storytelling too, there's different forms of storytelling. Not to say one is better than the other. There are certain artists that are very exciting to look at. And that's fine. I mean, for the medium, I think a lot of times people try to equate what's good art, quote unquote good art, versus bad art in comics. And that argument just, it's a tough road to go down, because a lot of times, even with my experience, sometimes you go to shows and shows are great. You meet fans, or anywhere, even online now, right? People say, "Oh, I love your work. I love your drawing. I love your style." Yeah, art is very subjective. And then of course, it's great to be complimented. It makes me feel good, right? And then I would ask the same person that likes my work, well, what other artists do you enjoy? What other artists do you like? And then they'll start naming names, and I'm like, wow, those people are not so good. So then what do they think of my work? Again, so it's taste. It's subjective. And then some people look at comics, and I feel like, what are they reading? What are they looking at? Why is this one person more popular than the other? It's kind of weird. So there are times where you see someone's work, and right away oh, this person is good, right? Earliest example of that is when I was reading comics and collecting comics as a teenager. I had my own favorite artists. I remember I would read X-Men, and wow, Dave Cockrum's work was amazing. When Paul Smith jumped on for the brief run that he had, immediately I was like, wow, I love this. When Barry Windsor-Smith had his run on X-Men, Life, Love, Death, and Weapon X, And then I guess the best example would be I used to read Alpha Flight, and Alpha Flight, some of the first artists on Alpha Flight, some of the first artists that got work. Well, John Byrne at the time was, I believe, drawing Alpha Flight primarily, along with other projects. But Mike Mignola had done some early Alpha Flight issues, and then I remember getting them. I would get a subscription in the mail. They send it in a brown paper bag. You can, and I would still go to the local comic book stores once a month to pick up like annuals or other special limited editions that you couldn't get subscribed to. But I would get like comics in the mail, and then go to the comic book store once a month, and then pick up some more stuff. I'm not really liking this forearm here, but maybe it's looking better on Twitch because it's kind of blurred. Anyways, and I remember one day getting, because I would get like G.I. Joe, Transformers, and X-Men, and Alpha Flight in my mail subscription. And by that time, John Romita Jr. was drawing X-Men. And then one day, Alpha Flight came. I don't remember what issue, 21, 19? I opened it up, and it was a different artist. It wasn't the regular artist that was on the book. But then I looked at the artwork, and I was like, wow, there's something about this art that speaks to me, that resonates. And I remember looking back at the front cover, inside cover, the masthead, and the artist's name was Jim Lee. And I think back then, I really haven't seen that issue since recently. I can tell you, it probably doesn't look anything like what I remembered in my memory. But I can remember the emotion, the feeling that I had when I saw the artwork. And it probably doesn't look really anything close to what he does now, especially the pink charity pieces that he's been doing. Those have been amazing. But there was something about it. And you can probably see hints and pieces of Jim in that book. But nothing like his X-Men run, Uncanny X-Men run. But again, sometimes artists speak to you in a particular way. And then I'm also kind of a guy that once I like someone, I will always get their work. Yeah, I'd be curious to look through that Alpha Flight issue with a now quote-unquote professional's eye and try to analyze. Because that's what I do too. At times, I don't read a lot of comics anymore, mostly because of time. But what I do is I go to the comic book stores. I haven't been in a while, in a few months. But that's because of the coronavirus. And I'll look through the aisles, I'll look through all the books, and try to get a gauge as to where the industry is heading. What are some of the popular styles or books that are out there? See if there's a cohesive movement within the industry in terms of artwork. You can also do that online. Sometimes I'll look at the preview sites and see what's going on. The cover art is one thing, but to look at the interior work and see where some of that style is going. I would say an example of that would be in the mid 90s. Joe Madureira, Ed McGuinness had a huge impact on the industry, I feel. In terms of shaping and shifting what was predominantly Jim Lee style, dominant image style, dominant feel and look to the art, to a more anime, cartoonish style. Even though, Yoji, you mentioned that Jim's version of Box pushed it more towards a cartoon anime version, Madureira really shifted that with Battle Chasers. And did he work on X-Men? I know Ed McGuinness with his Deadpool work really had a kind of cartoonish style. And then eventually I feel like, Humberto Ramos took that and also ran with that, and really even helped carve out that corner, and really expanded the industry in terms of the style. Um, a lot of young artists ask me about how do they develop their own style. You know, some of that I try not to get too much into a style, even though you will become influenced by things that you like. I do feel it's important to develop your own look and feel. But you look at like Sean, one of Sean's favorite artists, Travis Cheray. He started out as a person that had a Jim Lee style. A lot of artists in the '90s started out with a Jim Lee style, because the publishers were looking for artists that could replicate that, because they knew that that style sold. And that is a way to break in. To reflect or mimic a particular art movement that's going on. It's a commercial art at the end of the day. Publishers are going to look for styles that they're going to resonate with, that their fan base, that their customers are going to resonate with. And then eventually they all broke out and started developing their own look. And now, Travis is one of the most celebrated artists in the industry today. And his work is resoundingly unique and original. But his first work, published work, I think it was like a DC book, right? Like Sovereign 7 or... that came out in the 90s also. A lot of good work, a lot of good artists started in the 90s. And then over a course of years, really honed and developed their own styles. How are we feeling about this? Yeah. And that's true too, Yoji. I mean, obviously the Jim Lee influence was there. But there was also still something slightly unique about his work. It wasn't like it was just all Jim. There was something still unique and different about it. And then eventually he was able to blossom and kind of pivot towards his own. I mean, Travis is amazing. The storytelling, subtlety, the movements, the pacing. And you can hear the birds agree with me. Right? Yeah, they like Travis also. Hello, Eloise. How are you doing today? I hope you're enjoying your summer. Are you keeping busy? How are the squirrels in the backyard? And the butterflies. How many butterflies do you guys have? Hey Sean, is the pizzeria down the street still open? Man, I'm in the mood for some pizza. That's my constant daily struggle nowadays. Should I eat pizza or should I try to lose weight? And then the argument is like, well, it's quarantine. You should try to do stuff that will be comforting. But then you do too much of that, and that's also uncomfortable because now pants don't fit anymore. Clothes don't fit anymore. Oh no. Pizzeria has new owners. I hope the quality is still there. I have discovered a Jamaican patty food truck nearby me. That is pretty decent. Supposedly they're homemade. That is pretty decent. I have a buddy that has a pizza shop. Pizza shop. It's a couple pizza shops called Prime Pizza. And then I go to another one called La Farina and also Village Pizza in Larchmont. Prime Pizza I like. They have a good Sicilian, grandma style Sicilian, and the Village Pizza I like because they have clam and garlic. Whenever I say that, my mouth begins to water like Homer Simpson. So the kids are home during the summer. Are you giving them assignments? I hope they're helping you with the home renovations. Pretty soon, Eloise will be an expert at the staple gun or the nail gun. Drywall, installing drywall. What else? Insulation. I've been watching some YouTube videos too. There's one guy that bought a small kind of warehouse and has been retrofitting it to be his work studio, work and live studio. And I'm like, man, that's my ideal dream. Is to buy like a, say, 6,000 square foot warehouse. Not too big, not too small. And convert that into like a live-work space. Large enough to have a half-court basketball. Yeah. Those are certainly skills, good skills. You guys don't know, but Sean is quite the handyman. Sean Chen. Renovated not only his current residence, but also his former other place. So if he didn't want to draw comics, he could always, you could probably do, I would say do a YouTube, you could do a YouTube of like home renovations. Too bad most of the work's already done. I hope you've documented it. Ooh, what's going on here with the paper? I think there's a ridge right there. That line. Sean also has some competition now on Instagram. Some people have built like these benches for squirrels. And I know you were the first one to do that, so I'm sure they saw your Instagram feed, and now they're building squirrels benches, picnic benches. That's right. Yeah, I read about that. Yeah. You know, as an actor too, sometimes you're going to have a lot of downtime between gigs. You shoot a film, especially if you're in the movies. Television production is a little bit different, but not that much different. But if you're in the movies, you know, you got one movie, shoot 1 or 2 movies a year, you're going to have a lot of downtime. And then again, you never know when the next gig's going to come. So, a lot of actors, before they were super or more successful, all had day jobs or side jobs. Plus, you figure, if you're an actor and you start doing, let's say you want to move into television, and you start as a guest star or co-star, you know, you're only shooting 1 or 2 days for your spot, for your role. So you really have to have a secondary source of income. So you're only making a few $100 a day, right? $500, $600 a day, maybe $750. I don't know the exact amount, but it's not that much. In particular, I heard a story about one show that was shooting in New York. Television show, streaming. I won't say the exact name because this is all hearsay, so I don't want to But some of the actors that were in it that had major roles actually lost money or broke even, barely. Even a recurring major character, because it was what they call local hire. Even though that actor lived in LA or another part of the country, they signed on as a local hire, meaning that their expenses, living, you know, that they were supposedly living in New York. So the production was not going to cover any of the living expenses. So if you're on a show, you'd have to travel back and forth, your airfare, your housing, all that's on you. So it can add up, you know, especially if you're on a season. You got family back home, you got to fly back on the weekends, or, you know, maybe you're only working every other week, so in between, it's not cost efficient to rent or buy or you know, or get a hotel. So you got to fly back home, or you got other things to do. So you got airfare. Then when you're there, maybe you're crashing at a friend's place, or you're renting your own. You know, so it adds up. All right, how are we doing here? Are we almost done? I'm almost out of stuff to talk about. Which, if you know me, that is quite a surprise. I can talk your ear off. All right, let me erase some of this pencil stuff. Ooh, you can kind of see, I don't know if you can kind of see, but there's a lot of ink, a lot of lead being smeared around. Maybe if I just erased him, that'd be kind of cool. Nah, there's errant pencil marks. think I can add like a color wash to this. Because this is the inside cover of the sketchbook, I don't think it'll warp because it's glued. Yeah, a lot of shows being filmed in Vancouver, overseas, different states. Like Baywatch was filmed in Georgia. So a lot of states offer tax incentives for production companies. It's actually very expensive to shoot in Los Angeles. You need to get permits. Permits cost thousands of dollars, depending on location. Union projects, you have to hire security, all these other ancillaries, not just even the actors. So production in Los Angeles is very expensive. So a lot of places. Michigan is another a state that offers. So Georgia, Michigan offers tax incentives for production companies to move their productions there, which saves in the overall cost of making the show or movie or whatever. Everyone's trying to save money while making money. I've gone through the permit process to shoot short films in LA, and it's arduous. It's pain in the butt. It's like going to the DMV almost. Well, actually, the office itself is not that. It's kind of nice, but it's expensive. You got to rent equipment. You got to hire security. You got to get the permits. Permits are thousands of dollars, depending on how many locations you have. Some independent films, they try to do guerrilla. Which is they try to shoot without a permit. But if you're a major production, you got to go through all the right channels, because you got to get insurance. Someone gets hurt, yada yada. Even if you were to shoot in someone's home. I know, like, if you were to shoot in my building, you'd pay the homeowner to use their unit, but then you'd also have to pay the HOA, the Homeowners Association, to access the building. And, some of you might think, like, oh, that's a lot of pain in the ass. Well, these crews have hundreds of people coming into a building, hundreds of random strangers. You also want to make sure that they don't mess up your building. They don't leave trash. They don't destroy lights, scuff up the walls or the flooring. So you do have to charge them money. Otherwise, if you don't, that's the other thing. If you don't charge them money, then they'll actually take worse care, you'd think. But if you charge them money, and you charge them a lot, then they'll actually take better care. Go figure. So when they come into the building, they have to lay down cardboard on the floor so the flooring doesn't get scuffed, scrapped, scratched. They have to hire security. So when people are coming in and out of the building, separate from the residents, they're held accountable for that. And then workman's comps, in case anybody gets hurt. Okay. Anything else? I think I'd go in there with like a white pen. Maybe punch up some areas. Yoji, Sean. Thank you, Dire Raven, 2018. I'm a little slow on reading the comments, so please bear with me. This is the first time I've inked on a stream in a while. Usually it's pencils, so pencils I can if I mess up I just erase it, start over. But when it's inks, it's like, oh, it's kind of permanent, you know? I mean, yeah, I could go back in there later on and maybe white out some stuff, but whiteout doesn't necessarily look great over time. Sometimes it yellows out, so you can actually really see it. I think this is a different 005 pen. These are microns, 005. This one feels like it's got a little bit more ink. It's less scratchy than the other one. I just randomly grabbed a pen that was on my table. Alright, I think I want to fix this area down here. Maybe I'll go in. The two pens that I usually use when I'm inking traditionally, comic book page, is a 005, which is this, and a 08. Those are pretty much the only two pens that I use. Yeah, this one definitely has a little bit more ink. Feels softer too. It's a little bit more nib on it. Yes, we've had a couple things shot in our building. There was a Destiny's Child music video. They used the balcony of one of the buildings, one of the units that overlooked downtown LA. What else? They shot a commercial in the garage area. And so, for example, too, the Destiny's Child music video, you figure, well, how many people are in Destiny's Child? 3? 4? I don't remember. Beyonce. Right. So then, okay, I think let's say 3 performers, but then you got the director, cinematographer, you got their makeup, you got all these people. So they actually not just only had that one unit that they're shooting in, which is one of the bigger units in the building. I think it was like over 2,100 square feet. They had to rent another unit for staging down the hall. So they had to get 2 units. Right, so one would be staging where people would go, they have snacks or whatever, do makeup, set up some equipment. And then they would have another one that would be just where the shoot was. And the scene, if you actually watch it, Yoji, how do I do that? I've seen other people do, a mic stream where they have the YouTube. I can look up the link, and then just put up the link. Destiny's Child music video. If I do a search in YouTube, let me see, 2004. Maybe 2005. Oh, here it is. Found it. Destiny Child. Oh. copy link. Oops, sorry. Copy link. Does that work? Let me check this out. Yep. So they shot that in two units. So the intro of that is identical to mine. But then the balcony, I don't have a balcony. So the music video, the three of them, they're walking supposedly in New York. I guess they're mimicking Sex in the City. Because they're showing what's kind of like the Sex and the City intro sequence with similar fonts and the Chrysler building. And right now I'm about, who knows? I think they probably paid like 10 grand for just the location, the renter. I mean the unit, just to use the unit. Let's see. I'm about a minute 15 in. These girls are sitting on a couch watching TV. They're singing. I don't have the sound on, so I don't know. That looks like it's downtown LA. Kelly is on the counter blowing out candles. That's inside a unit. Some dude that's my trash can, actually. They used my trash can. Wow, my trash can is in a music video. Awesome. I've never actually seen this whole music video. Because the production manager was like, hey, does anybody have like a metal trash can we can use? They were supposed to pay me to use it too. I think like $100. I never got paid. It's too late. Statutes of limitations has expired. I mean, the trash can was like $100, so I could have bought a second trash can with that. I don't know where the restaurant scene is being shot. I'm assuming it's somewhere local. Music videos tend to have short shoots, a couple of days. They were here one night, that was it. But it was a chaotic night because the homeowner didn't tell anybody, didn't tell the HOA. And all of these people started showing up with all this equipment. They also had the camera equipment that was in the hallways. Yeah, they owe me $100. Come on. But I have a very famous trash can now. If you ever come over, I will show you my famous trash can that's been in the Destiny's Child music video. I guess I can put that on my CV, my curriculum vitae. Let's see. This right now, Kelly's in the second level, looking down at some dude. Poor dude. He's getting shown the way out. That's in the big loft. Technically, all the units are quote-unquote lofts because here's a guy's nude and he's tied to the balcony, and she's laughing. That's not nice. They're walking on a street with a Macy's in the background. That's definitely at downtown LA. And so apparently this guy got catfished or something, tied on a balcony overlooking downtown Los Angeles, or supposedly New York City, and used my trash can. Nice. So you learn something new every day. Yeah, I was pissed. Well, I was like on the HOA board that day. So imagine they showed up, all these residents were complaining because all this equipment was in the hallway. They were shooting in the middle of the night. You know, it was like 2, 3 in the morning. So the other residents were complaining right? Because there's sound, there's noise, there's people coming in and out, there's safety issues. Because now the front door is propped open, anybody in the street can walk in. Um, uh, you know, we don't know what's going on. The owners weren't actually here; they had actually left. So it was just the production people. So needless to say, those owners I'm not big fans of afterwards, because it's like them leaving your neighbors high and dry. Like, hey, I got paid $10,000, and now, screw you if it causes you um, any problems. They don't mind because they're not actually even here to witness it. And I didn't get paid my $100 to use my trash. So they were trying to, I guess, now that I'm remembering all this stuff, so they were trying to like appease everybody by getting everybody to contribute something so that they would pay him off, basically. And we had come to an agreement in terms of hours, in terms of, and also thank goodness it was actually a legit production company, right? That was putting together a Destiny's Child music video. So, because the thing is, like, if it was some kind of, low budget film or production, they would have been like, F you, we don't, we're just in and out. But because it was a major budget, those guys were at least respectable. They didn't want their reputation to be tarnished. So they were trying to appease everybody. So at some point we came to an agreement. I remember we even called the cops, the police, because technically they were trespassing. When you buy into a condominium, you only really technically buy into the airspace, or you own the airspace. You buy into a corporation, and the corporation is run by the board. So it's not like, yeah, you bought a home, but you own the airspace in between the walls. The HOA really controls a lot of it. So I was the president of the HOA, but not then. That year I think I was just the vice president. But I was the president of the board for like 4 years. So if you have any HOA questions, I can probably help you out, although I'm not a lawyer, so I can give you some advice. I was also a member of the Downtown Neighborhood Council at one point. Alright, I think I'm done with this. Besides, it's 1:30. How long have I been streaming? 2 hours and 13 minutes. Okay. I gotta call my accountant back. Yeah. I would encourage you, if you live in a condominium, and you're there for a while, run for the board. Serve on it for 1 or 2 years, depending on the term. It's your property, right? It's your investment. You want to at least understand your rights of the HOA, your rights as a homeowner. Alright, let me go in there with a white gel pen, see if I can clean this up a little bit, and then head out of here. Here we go. This is another jelly roll number 8. Found that jelly roll number 8 is much better than jelly roll number 5. Jelly roll number 5 tends to not work so well. 8 gives me a little bit of a line that I can work with. 5 very rarely draws anything. 10 sometimes can be a little too thick. But I kind of want to do like the splatter that Jim does. Even though it doesn't, thematically, there's no reason for splatter on this. So let's recap what we learned today. A, I have an original signed Barry Windsor Smith piece somewhere. B, Destiny Child owes me $100. I have a world famous trash can that's in my kitchen. What else? We almost beat NYU with 4 players. Number 1 ranked in the nation. NYU actually ended up losing in the championship game in overtime on a controversial call. They had actually won in regulation, but the referees counted a last second bucket for the other team that tied it up, and then they eventually lost in overtime. So, very similar. Very similar. A lot of these overtime games. Division 3, I don't know. What else? I think that's it. That's all that we learned today. Let me see. What else? Anything else? Anyone else got any more questions? I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope everyone stays safe and sane. I will try to stream again later this week, maybe over the weekend. Do another pencil sketch. But for now, thank you for joining. Make sure you subscribe so that you know next time I'm on. Also, we got Sean Chen in the house. Make sure you give him a follow. Sean Chen Art on Instagram. My Instagram is @TheBernardChang. You can kind of see it right here. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining and participating. And I will see you next time. Hey, James, don't worry. Keep asking questions. That's what I'm here for. All right? Peace out.